Hey, what's up,
Hey,
Lance?
what up, Lance? Good to see you.
Okay, so is that true? Because I'm hearing you talk. I was just listening to what before I came on, and you're saying that like Nina Turner is apparently going to be his VP. Is that a rumor?
Okay,
Is that based on reality?
This is where we're at, right? So what happened yesterday is Gavin and I are doing our live stream, and we're waiting for Cenk's interview with breaking points to drop because we're like, oh boy, that's got to have something good in there, let's milk that for a little bit. And then Gavin's like, holy shit, dude. Cenk announces 2024 presidential ambitions on this episode. And now here's where it does get into a little bit of a knitting circle analysis, Lance. You're gonna have to bear with us. But what happened? Okay. You follow Nina Turner on Senator.
I
Nina
do.
Turner
Big fan.
Twitter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, big fan. Absolutely. And her show was recently sunset on TYT, so she's still a contributor over there. Obviously, she was reacting to the Republican primary shit show debate over the other day, but not, they've moved her on from being like wrapped up in like the day-to-day production of content, which, okay, so now she's got a lot of free time. And she's also been traveling around, and she keeps hinting at an announcement. Oh, I've got a big announcement. Oh, I've got a big announcement. There's a big announcement coming. Just wait only one more week until my big announcement. 2024, Cenk's talking about staffing up. He's really been spending a lot of time with Senator Nina Turner, at least on air in the TYT nebulous. He's not a natural born citizen. He was born in Turkey, obviously. All these things kind of add up to he can't run for president without a team. What do you think, Lance? Are we fucking crazy?
Okay, well, first off, I need to know, can you all Americans fill me in? I've heard mixed things. I've heard, because like people were saying, because Ted Cruz, if you don't know, he was born in Canada,
but both of his parents were American.
Yes, right.
You have to be American by birth is the precedent.
Okay.
So it's like, even though
there's no way Cenk could ever run for president of the United States.
I think that he could run. I don't think that they would ever make him president.
Although, according to Cenk himself, and he brought this up on the PBD podcast, actually, when he was recently on there, he claims that that's not true. And that if you actually read the amendment, that the actual language leaves wiggle room for an immigrant to make, or like someone who was, like naturalized later in life as an American citizen to still run for president. And that because of the vague way the amendment is worded, that technically he could still do it. And he was passionately making that case to Patrick Bet-David, who was like, really? I've never heard that. You're telling me I could run for president? I was like, I could see the wheels in Patrick's head turning, like, oh shit, maybe I should, get involved too. But so Cenk does claim to, have a workaround or some sort of theory that would let him get in there. Okay. And honestly, we were talking to the guys at Left Reckoning this morning. They made the good point that like, if Cenk does run and he just makes this like one of the big issues of his campaign, that like it's stupid that immigrants can't run for president. It's stupid that you have to have been born in the United States to run for president. Like if he makes that one of the central issues of his campaign, that actually would be based, because it is really stupid and xenophobic that immigrants and people that aren't born here can't run for president, when oftentimes they're just as much, if not far more, patriotic and enthusiastic about this country than people that were born here.
Completely 100% agree. Wasn't that Arnold Schwarzenegger's big thing? Not the second part, but the first part. Like when he was going to run for president, there was this huge debate. Can he actually run? And then
that's why The Simpsons made a joke where he was president. Yeah.
I am interested though, Lance, before we move off the subject matter, just given your, personal history. I know at one point you were kind of affiliated with TYT. Every once in a while see you pop up on the network. Like, I am just interested in what you think of, like, when you heard the news that Cenk was considering a run for the presidency. Do you think that he's even serious about it, if he's just trying to sell books, or do you think he actually like could really be serious about making a run for this? And do you hope it happens, or do you hope it like doesn't happen?
But so did you all follow the drama with me, us and Cenk? I don't know.
Oh yeah, dude, we documented that shit like crazy.
Oh, okay. So back in the time, so yeah, we had a falling out. He did an amazing impression of me, captured my personality perfectly.
One of my favorite.
Here, I'll name the name. Lance from the Serps. He's on here all the time on the power panel, right? And he comes out and does this like video about how he's so correct and oh yeah, the Young Turks, correct? No, Lance, you're not goddamn correct.
I was trying to find that clip before you came on today to introduce you with it, because I love that clip so much.
Lance of the Serps. You got my trademark phrase. What can I say? I got fucking skier. What do I think about him running for president of the United States? I mean, like, I think it would be kind of clown shoes, just because at the end of the day, what was his last election turnout? 5%.
6.6%, less than 10,500 votes.
Okay, is he going to be drawing money, attention, potential funding away from the Cornell West run? Is he going to be in direct conflict of that? Nina Turner is way more qualified to run for president of the United States, as well as way more popular, I would assume, than Cenk would be. So I would hope that's not going to be a presidential ticket with Cenk and her as VP. If anything, she should be fucking running for president herself. But either way, I don't think he's running yet. I think I watched that clip yesterday. He said he's like, I'm begging someone to do it because Joe Biden's going to lose to Donald Trump. He's really worried about that poll that came out. I've also seen a lot of problems with that poll that came out. I think no matter what happens, Trump is announcing that he's won the president of the United States, but I don't necessarily at this time think that Biden is going to lose rightfully to Donald Trump, and that the only solution would be a Cenk Uygur to run against him. I don't know if that's a thing. He said he's basically trying to do a situation where someone else, if he gets a certain percentage of the vote, would be forced to do something, right?
It's almost like a diet Mike Gravel move.
Okay. A diet
Mike Gravel was like, right. I don't know if you followed Mike Gravel's.
Oh, no, I loved his campaign.
Speaking of Ukraine, infrastructure in the Ukrainian port city of Odessa was heavily damaged in a drone strike, according to Ukrainian officials on Monday. The overnight attack significantly damaged both a port and an abandoned hotel, while also destroying a grain silo. This comes after 5 people were killed over the weekend from Russian attacks. Russian forces have consistently targeted infrastructure meant for storing and shipping of food. As Ukraine enters its 20th.
And now joining us is former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Ivo Daalder. He is now the Chief Executive Officer of the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. We're very happy to have him, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you very much for being here. $43 billion, that's how much money the U.S. has spent on military aid to Ukraine. If you could put it to us bluntly, would Ukraine exist as an independent country in the absence of that investment?
No, it wouldn't. This is a war in which the Russians launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine now 20 months ago with one purpose, which was to make sure that Ukraine as a country would not be able to make the kinds of decisions any independent country can make, which alliances it belongs to, what kind of political system it has, who its leaders are. This was an attempt to take over a country. It has failed. Russia has failed because of the extraordinary spirit and fighting power of the Ukrainians, but they couldn't be fighting without the kinds of equipment that the United States has provided, as your really excellent report on 60 Minutes last night demonstrated. And I agree with Senator Lindsey Graham. It's hard to see how you could get more for the buck. The destruction of half of it, $43 billion. No war could do that unless other people are doing it for us.
So on that note, the Biden administration is proposing another $20 billion of aid. How necessary are those investments?
It's vital. The administration and Congress agreed as part of a package of aid to fund support for Ukraine through the end of September, and that money is still being rolled out. But as you know, we're at the end of September, and the Biden administration has said if we want to continue to support Ukraine at the pace and with the level of support that we've done to date, we need for the next 3 months, for the last 3 months of this calendar year, to provide another $24 billion, including $13 billion for military support. And given what's going on in Ukraine, the kinds of brutality we're seeing every day, it is critical that Ukraine have the means to both defend itself and its cities against the kind of brutal, undiscriminating attacks, and to continue the counteroffensive that's finally starting to show real progress. So this is the last moment at which to pull the plug on Ukraine. It is absolutely vital we continue it.
Mr. Ambassador, Amazon can sometimes struggle in my neck of the woods to put a package on my porch and keep it there. So I can only imagine that when you're sending aid and equipment into a war zone where things are
Uygur, host of the Young Turks and also author of the new book, Justice is Coming, How Progressives Are Going to Take Over the Country and America is Going to Love It. I'm most of the way through the book, Cenk, and you talk about so many different things that are relevant to the 2024 election, to what's happened in the past. Maybe just to pick something interesting that relates to what you discuss in the book. You seem, I think, increasingly worried that Joe Biden's reelection is going to go haywire, that he's going to lose, that he can't beat Trump if that's who the nominee is. The context, although you're not directly addressing this necessarily in the book, the context you talk about in the book relates to it. Am I accurately understanding your view on the Biden reelection?
100%. Yeah. Look, nothing is, in terms of probabilities of winning, nothing is 0 or 100%. Everything's on a spectrum somewhere, right?
Yep.
So, and unfortunately, a lot of people think in a binary way. Well, he won last time. That means he's going to win this time. No, it doesn't work that way. It's a percentage chance. And with Joe Biden, any rational person realizes that the percentage chance of him beating Trump is much lower than if we had a strong Democratic candidate. Now, why is he quote unquote not strong? Well, look at the polling. It's not my opinion. And this isn't progressive versus moderate. That has nothing to do with any of this. I don't have a progressive alternative. There's no Trojan horse that we're going to sneak in and voila, Nina Turner's president. No. Okay. I mean, I would love that, but no. Okay. No, I'll take Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania. I'll take Governor Beshear from Kentucky just to increase our percentage chances. So why are they so low, David? They're low because 72% of the country says that they don't even think he's going to make it through a second term. I mean, that's a disastrous poll. And so we could try to wish that away, but we can't. His approval rating in half the recent polls are in the 30s. If you're in the 40s as an incumbent, you're very likely to lose. If you're in the 30s, I've literally never seen it happen. So, I mean, and remember, when he won the Electoral College by a razor-thin margin, he won the popular vote by 4.5 points. So he has to be up at a bare minimum 4.5, but then you're playing dice with democracy. So realistically, he has to be up 5 points. And right now he's losing. Come on, guys, think about it. He's losing to the moron Donald Trump right now. It's inconceivable. It cannot be the most important election of our lifetimes. And we are choosing to go into it with a very hobbled candidate because we'd like to be polite to him because he'd like a better legacy as a 2-term president.
So let me present a couple different perspectives, okay, and see what you think. One is, it's September, end of September, early October 2023, and Joe Biden is currently the president of the United States. So the question I'm asking is, his replacement with who would actually get the Democratic candidate in a better position? I don't think that if he were to be replaced at this point, because of the negative connotations of that it actually would increase the chances that the Democratic nominee becomes president. Do you agree with that? Or you think his replacement at this stage of the game ups the odds that the Democratic candidate wins?
His replacement would instantly give the Democrats a 5 to 10 point bump.
Instantly. Really? With who, though?
Okay, easy, super easy. I named 2 right there. I'll name them again. I could name you probably about 400 Democrats in the country who would do better than Joe Biden. I mean, look at that way of thinking. The only Democrat who could win is Joe Biden. Why? Is the rest of the Democratic Party totally pathetic?
No. My argument is less about that. And by the way, I don't know that I'm any more of a Biden fan than you are. I'm just trying to think about this as strategically as possible. The act of saying at this point that a president who has announced they are running for re-election has an okay economic record and has had some tangible advancements for labor, et cetera, which we can talk about, saying we're actually going to pull them out. We're either going to run a primary or we're just going to anoint someone. It's hard for me to imagine it helps.
No, it's totally, Look, we have a massive disagreement there. So let me explain why. Okay?
Yeah, please.
And
please.
This case is almost never made, so probably nobody's even heard this case before.
Okay.
So first of all, heated primaries are a wonderful thing. The examples against heated primaries go back decade after decade. Oh, in 1972 and 1837. No, guys. In 2020, the Democrats had a heated primary. They won. In 2016, the Republicans had the most heated primary in American history, and they won. to being either neutral or a little against Biden, because then they don't have to worry about a progressive, which they hate way more than they would hate Trump, right? So since you don't have to worry about that, and they all know Biden's going to lose. I mean, you could see the sweat on Joe Scarborough's forehead every morning. And James Carville came out yesterday with Bill Maher and said, what are we, crazy? Finally, David Ignatius at the Washington Post, finally people are catching up to what I'm saying, which is, guys, this isn't your normal battle where you dig into your trenches. Do you really think democracy is on the line? Because my hair's on fire.
Right.
Trump is promising not only imprisonment, but death for his political opponents.
Yep.
And people aren't getting it. They keep projecting normalness onto Trump when he is not normal. Will he actually do those things? Yes, he will definitely imprison his political opponents. He has said it. Bennett has said it. Roger Stone has said it. They've said it 100 times. They're going to imprison people for no goddamn reason. His former defense secretary just yesterday said, yes, he considered arresting and imprisoning General McRaven and General McChrystal in the last term. And back then there was brakes in the car. So democracy is actually on the line. To go in with a wounded antelope is madness, total madness. So I think even the Morning Joe guys know.
Welcome to a late night Sunday edition. I guess it's not late night, evening Sunday edition of Straight Outta Politics. I'm your host for today. I'm CJ. That stands for Compton J in real life. And actually, I have a good sort of a feel-good story, but also exposing capitalism and Walmart. I was out yesterday with my girls, my two youngest girls, my oldest girls, college, graduated and all that stuff. So with my two youngest girls, and I met a guy who recognized me from the streams, and he's like, hey, what's up? And then he tells me a little bit about his story where he just got fired from Walmart because he had a handicap, and he has epilepsy. I'm gonna have him on. I think I'm gonna bring him on next week sometime, maybe at the end of this week or next week. But he was having these episodes, but they weren't as so bad as where he said he would have them, and then when they were over, he would just continue to work. So, and I guess that was a problem. But anyway, so like I said, it was a feel-good story because I met somebody that has been, a working class person who was like, hey, I'm watching you guys. So it makes me feel good that actual working class people, are watching the show. Sorry to the professional managerial class, I love you, but that is the people we need in the fight. There's too many professional managerial class here, and you see two of them on the screen right now. We need more working class people. So shout out to all the working class and poor and disabled, those that cannot work. So welcome to everybody, and thank you for joining me. This one right here, capitalist violate the ADA all the time, and that's word up. Oh, it said it's late night over here. I wonder where you are. If it's 12:30, I take that as 12:30 if it's double zeros, right? So 12:30, 9, that is 8 hours ahead of me. So you're in Europe somewhere? Maybe on, I don't know. I'm not thinking of a map right now. But like Western Europe, I'd assume. But anyway, so thank you for that comment. And back to this comment here, Rondo, thank you for that comment. All right, so let's get back into this. This is a very short, I just wanted to get warmed up conversation. I'm a little chilly, that's why I got this little, is this called a turtleneck? Yeah, I guess turtleneck on. So let's get warmed up with this brief little discussion. It's a very interesting discussion because when I saw it pop up in one of my YouTube channels or one of my YouTube accounts, not this one, not RBN or the RBN Long Beach. When it popped up, I was like, wow, because Cenk is on a book tour now. Let's have a little cutout segment here, because you tell me how these fools, or how these people, Cenk Uygur, how is he not bringing what mainstream media does to independent media. Isn't this what happens? Somebody goes on writes a book. They're on CNN. They're on Fox. They're on a morning show. Good Morning America. You know, everything. That's what we're doing now so he can sell a book. He's having these conversations because you could have had this conversation over Biden a while ago, but you have a book to sell, which makes it suspect, even the conversation. But anyway, let's take it for what it is. And what was I going to say here? Oh, let's take it for what it is, and let's listen, because it's curious. Oh, this is what I was saying. When I saw it pop up, it was like, I know they have opposite views because I studied the propaganda. So he is more, I'm trying to get Biden out, and what's his name? David Pakman is more rah Biden, like really rah Biden. And in this video, you can kind of see that that exchange a little bit. I mean, they're intentionally trying to keep it nice, because he is selling the book, so they're keeping it a little more cordial. But this is a disagreement. I'm going to go back a little bit to about 5 minutes. 5 minutes? Yeah. Right about here. So I'm going to pick it up right here, and where they start to discuss. This is where they start to talk about their differences.
Guys, in 2020, the Democrats had a heated primary. They won. In 2016, the Republicans had a really heated, the most heated primary in American history.
1 second.
And they won.
Go back a little further. The 5 minute mark is where I ended last time. So let's go here. All right. I think this is it now.
About 400 Democrats in the country who would do better than Joe Biden. I mean, look at that way of thinking. The only Democrat who could win is Joe Biden. Why? Is the rest of the Democratic Party totally pathetic?
No. My argument is less about that. And by the way, I don't know that I'm any more of a Biden fan than you are. I'm just trying to think about this as strategically as possible. The act of saying at this point that a president who has announced they are running for re-election has an okay economic record and has had some tangible advancements for labor, et cetera, which we can talk about, saying we're actually going to pull them out. We're either going to run a primary or we're just going to anoint someone. It's hard for me to imagine it helps.
No, it's totally, Look, we have a massive disagreement there. So let me explain why. Okay?
Yeah, please.
And this case is almost never made, so probably nobody's even heard this case before.
Okay.
So first of all, heated primaries are a wonderful thing. The examples against heated primaries go back decade after decade. Oh, in 1972 and 1837. No, guys. In 2020, the Democrats had a heated primary. They won. In 2016, the Republicans had a really heated, the most heated primary in American history, and they won. Why? Because the extra coverage, media coverage you get from a heated primary helps your side make your case to the American people. The Democrats are not making their case at all. Whereas if we had Governor Beshear from Kentucky and Governor Shapiro.
I wonder if that's what do you think of that theory? That's an interesting theory from Jank here. That is an interesting theory, that because if you take the 2020 who had a primary in 2020? The Democrats. They won. Who had a primary? In 2016, everybody had a primary. But who had the most heated primary? Who had the most eyes focused? And everybody knows it was the one that Trump was in. That's who when they gave him all those billions of dollars in free advertisement. So I wonder what everybody let me see what everybody's saying in the comments. But what do you think about that? Is that a sound theory? What's the holes in it? What do you think? You guys are just talking about him. I don't mean to engage in an ad hominem, and I'm going to just add the word attack there, but he's not giving me anything intelligible to critique. I'm gonna star this comment on the the war, the Ukraine funding, because that's a good comment, but that's not right now. We're asking about it. It says Cenk might be sensual for the mainstream audience. Is that right? Sensual? Okay, that's lit. I mean, if you told me to list words I would never use with Cenk, that has to be up there. Let's go with John. What's up, John? Cenk had to do something to stay relevant after Bree made him look as stupid as he is, and I think that could be a factor. There could be a lot of factors here, and why he's doing what he's doing. But you do notice why you notice who defends the squad. TYT largely, Majority Report, Ryan Grimm. Who's writing books? Didn't they have sort of they had an investment in shielding for the squad. They had an investment, an upcoming book they needed to sell, especially Ryan's book, was specifically talking about the squad. This is why he has to come in and play Captain Save a Politician all the time. So, but let's get back to the video because I do want to keep this segment short. Got a lot, the Ukraine stuff. I found so much footage that I had to cut down of examples of progressives or progressives supposedly fighting to fund Ukraine, and surprisingly conservatives fighting against it. So we'll get to that in a minute, but let's finish up a couple more minutes of this here.
From Pennsylvania against Joe Biden, they'd all be talking about how great the Democratic case is and how they would be better at executing that Democratic case. I don't believe in anointing anyone. It's absurd. I don't believe that the president is king and we must abide by his rule. I don't believe in line of succession, and hence the crown princess Kamala Harris should be anointed next. No, I believe in something very simple. Democracy. It works. Give me a primary today, and I will give you a much stronger Democratic Party.
Couple thoughts on that, and this is interesting. And by the way, I would love a Democratic primary and make Joe Biden win it again. Like, I get why the Democratic Party's not doing it. I understand their thing is we've got some.
He would love a Democratic primary. That is absolutely new news to me because I've covered how he's a Joe Biden simp. Now, and I've covered I think I did the video I had ripped from YouTube and I put it on Twitter of him arguing against Marianne Williamson. And then several videos subsequently saying how there's no serious primary challenger. So you can't say I want a primary only with specific candidates that I want in. It's a primary is a primary, regardless who decides to run. So that is odd that he's now taken. It feels to me that is a change, at least in maybe I don't even know what the right word. The essence of how he speaks about this topic.
And we must abide by his rule. I don't believe in line of succession, and hence the crown princess Kamala Harris should be anointed next.
Voices,
no, I believe in something very
it's
simple.
A little insulting when you do that to a person you're talking to.
Today, and I will give you a much stronger Democratic Party.
Couple thoughts on that, and this is interesting. And by the way, I would love a Democratic primary and make Joe Biden win it again. Like, I get why the Democratic Party's not doing it. I understand their thing is we've got someone in the Oval Office. Our best shot is just go with that. I would love a primary.
I don't honestly, David, I don't think that's why they're doing it.
They're a corporation.
You, David, hold on. Everyone, you know, and I know, everyone in our lifetimes has said the rule: an incumbent under 50 points is very likely to lose. So they keep talking about incumbent advantage, and that's actually not true. The incumbent advantage exists in Montana, where name recognition is the name of the game. But at the presidential level, everybody's going to know the Democratic candidate in the general election. Literally everyone is. Name recognition is not an issue. Incumbency actually weighs you down as president. It's actually a negative thing. They get to attack you on all the different issues. So the Democrats don't want Biden just because they believe in the power of incumbency. And maybe some of them do genuinely. But the real reason is they believe in the power of authoritarian rule. If you ask the DNC, they are never going to go with an outsider. They are never going to go with someone who isn't already the incumbent because they believe in the current power infrastructure.
Agreed.
But us as Democratic voters need to rebel and say, I didn't sign up for authoritarian rule. That's the other side.
Let's see what
Let's see
what David has to say.
So
Let's
two
see David.
thoughts on this hypothetical primary that we both agree won't happen but would like to see. One is,
by the way, I don't agree to that. I'm trying to force that
okay.
primary in every
all right, fair.
And tyt.com/dropout, because the best way to get here is that Joe Biden stops being an egomaniac and worrying about
fair. So you think it might happen. I don't think it will happen. Fine, that's a disagreement. But here's two thoughts based on what you said. One, the Republican primary right now is a version of what you described, meaning they seem to sort of agree on the package, much like you're saying Democratic voters agree on the platform and why it's better than what Republicans are offering. Many of those people in the Republican primary are less crazy than Trump and probably would be more likely to actually do the things that they want to do. Trump's blowing them out of the water without even going to the debates. So that's one thing. It's not obvious to me that when voters are presented with other people who are younger and less crazy with the same ideas, on the Republican side, they're doing something very different. Republican voters are different, and you can make that case in a second. Second observation, we have some polling of Williamson, Kennedy, and Biden. Now, my opinion is Kennedy and Williamson are not people like the ones you described. But
so this is the point I made earlier.
I actually think if there were a primary right now and Biden is in it, I think Biden wins the primary.
Wow, that's crazy.
The only
that's
way that
crazy.
He wins the primary is
I told you he's a simp.
Brainwashes every one of the Democratic voters into compliance.
Okay.
But I don't think they're going to. And so that's a giant difference between 2016, 2020, and 2024. Why? Because in 2016 and 2020, MSNBC and CNN hit progressives and Bernie Sanders harder than Fox News did, constantly battering, because they're in favor of corporate rule and establishment Democrats. But in this case, it's not really. Look, I wish it was Marianne versus Biden, and I'm going to vote for Marianne if those are the choices. And I'm going to do that easily. I think she's not only the better candidate in terms of policy, I think she has a better chance of winning. I think everyone has a better chance of winning than Biden. But okay, put that aside. What is
now? I must say, in no way do I believe that Cenk thinks Marianne Williamson can really win a primary. There's no way that I think that. If they open up the primary, RFK Jr. is literally doubling her support in some polls. So how would it skip over him to her? It's absurd. It's absurd. So yeah, I think he wasn't finished. Let me let him, I guess, finish here.
Much more likely is a Governor Shapiro or a Governor Bashir or a Governor Whitmer against Biden.
Those are terrible.
Okay, well,
terrible. Those are just younger versions of Joe Biden.
Actually, probably
just younger versions of Joe Biden
to being either neutral or a little against Biden, because then they don't have to worry about a progressive, which they hate way more than they would hate Trump, right? So since you don't have to worry about that, and they all know Biden's going to lose. I mean, you could see the sweat on Joe Scarborough's forehead every morning. And James Carville came out yesterday with Bill Maher and said, "What are we?"
That is true. That is true. Nick and I, in particular, do a lot of coverage of Morning Joe. I literally have to check in on that show every morning. That's where I start my, at least not after my reading, then my actual watching, because I do both. I do reading, then I watch. So the first thing I always watch is Morning Joe, because that's how I know to even go look for other stories. I know I want to see what is the mainstream wants to be the top story. What is the people who the donors want to be the top story? That's the reason why I go to him. And they're in panic mode. I think I'm at least on segment 3 or 4 of panic mode about Joe Biden. So to the point that he's making here.
Crazy. Finally, David Ignatius at the Washington Post. Finally, people are catching up to what I'm saying, which is, guys, this isn't your normal battle where you dig into your trenches. Do you really think democracy is on the line? Because my hair's on fire.
Right.
Trump is promising not only imprisonment, but death for his political opponents.
Yep.
And people aren't getting
What?
it. They keep projecting normal.
I mean, the only thing I know, if you tell me, you guys in the comments tell me if this is not correct. The only thing, and I hate how this is a over magnification. In my opinion, he says something to the effect. This isn't verbatim, but back in the past, he referred to back in the day, something like that. Back in the day, or back at some faraway time, you know, back when America was really good, I guess, in his opinion. If you believe all the historical fairy tale stories, he says something that person, it would be, I guess he considers him like a traitor or treason, and treason, the punishment for treason was death. That's so he makes a reference to that, saying that. I don't stretch that to mean he's making a threat. He's saying that's simply what he's saying. That this same crime, like if I say the crime of murder in 1800 would get this, I mean, it's just stating the fact, in my opinion. But they're taking it and run with it, and now it's that he's threatening political opponents with death. That's new. Let's see if he explains that part.
Onto Trump when he is not normal. Will he actually do those things? Yes, he will definitely imprison his political opponents. He has said it. Bennett has said it. Roger Stone has said it. They've said it 100
They will
times.
imprison him too. They're doing it now
for no goddamn reason. His former defense secretary just yesterday said yes, he considered arresting and imprisoning General McRaven and General McChrystal in the last term. And back then there was brakes in the car. So democracy is actually on the line. To go in with a wounded antelope is madness, total madness. So I think even the Morning Joe guys know, bring in, I mean, for them, it's Newsom and Whitmer, right? For me, it's Shapiro and Bashir, because I think they're more likely to win. They won in swing states, they won in red states, and they're more personal, slightly better policies. But give me anyone but Biden. I don't want to purposely lose this election. I don't want to go quietly into that good night.
So to not make the entire interview just about this, I think this is a good segue into what you argue in the book is actually the state of the country when it comes to the political spectrum, which is that you argue that this is fundamentally a progressive country. This is an argument I've also been making. When you really do issue-oriented polling and the wording is...
So they're talking about, they're slightly going off on a little bit about the book, because they're not going to go anywhere. He's going to still promote Joe Biden as if he's a great thing, and he's going to keep going on this tour about that. Now, this is crazy, because if Cenk is willing to go outside of the box, that means the people that paid him the money, the 20 mil, is fine with him going outside of the box. And like he said, the David Ignatius story in I think it was a Washington Post, just open up the floodgates for people to really come out and say what they think about this candidacy. So that's what they're doing. So let's move on to the next story. Now, I do want to cover some very short stories before I get to the Ukraine, because the Ukraine is going to take up the bulk. There's a lot of stuff to go over. So I do want to cover some stories that I've been pushing back over and over. Or one story: the fast food workers in California getting paid $20 an hour, a new law that Gavin Newsom signed. And then there's another story about Gavin, but that story is not about Gavin Newsom, it's about the fast food workers. And then the Gavin Newsom story is that he vetoes a bill that would give unemployment checks to striking workers. So he vetoed, that means it got past the state versions of the House and the Senate. Got past that. He vetoes it. Why would somebody who's on, that is a clear indication you're with owners. You're with the owner class, you're with the capitalist class, because you know what they know. If they're able to sustain themselves, they can stay out longer on a strike. So why, if I'm representing the capitalists, would I offer that? But anyway, I'll wait for that for the segment. But anyway, let's, I guess I'll go to that one. So let's bring that one up. It's what is it? Newsom vetoes bill for workers. I'm going to keep it simple. It's not quite shoot the shit Saturdays, but Sundays is kind of laid back too, at least in my household. Newsom vetoes bill. Okay, so let's get into that story. This is like a 5-minute segment here. Feeling a little warmed up now. So Gavin Newsom, here he goes. Here is the headline. I'll bring up the article in just a second, but here is the head. Oops. 1 second here. All right. Yeah. There we go. A little pop-up came for me. So here's Ryan Knight tweeting this out. Shout out to Ryan. And I'll blow that up just a tad here. Oops. Did I zoom it out too much? All right. Aaron, I guess you can start here. Gavin Newsom, my governor, Gavin Newsom, the used car salesman, vetoes bill that would allow striking workers to get unemployment checks. So this is, as I was saying before the clip started, and I saved it for here. So let me sort of reiterate what I said a few minutes ago, and that is, this is a clear indication that Gavin Newsom is on the side of the capitalists, on the side of the owner class, over workers. Because who would, like, I would assume everybody reached out to him to lobby against this in order for him to veto this bill. Everybody reached out and said, no, sir. Because if you give money to striking workers, they're able to strike longer, to hold out longer for better working conditions and wages. So they said, oh, no, you can't do that. You can't give them a leg up in the strike after we're already only paying them $7.25 an hour. Of course not. After we suppress that, you're going to go ahead and create this loophole. No. So let's bring up the actual article and just read a little bit, and we're going to close it out here because this is just we have the ending. We already have the ending, so it's not like a developing story or anything of the nature. He's already vetoed it. There's no going back. And it's a bunch of pop-up here. Can I close that or no? There we go. All right, here's the headline. I'm going to read from the AP now. The other headline wasn't from the AP. California governor rejects bill to give unemployment checks to striking workers. And then they have the picture. I think these are the hotel workers right here. And yeah, this is from yesterday. Sacramento. California won't be giving unemployment checks to workers on strike with Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom vetoing a bill Saturday that had been inspired by a high-profile work stoppage in Hollywood and the hotel industry. Imagine that. Newsom, a Democrat, says he supports workers. You see how they do that? You see how they break strikes, and then he says, I support workers. In Joe Biden's case, Gavin Newsom is doing the same thing. And we have people like AOC and Bernie Sanders, for that matter, propping that idea up. And which is terrible. But we got more to say tomorrow. We're going to cover the big story about Bernie Sanders tomorrow with Nick and CJ. But Newsom, a Democrat, says he supports workers and often benefits from campaign contribution from labor unions because their labor union leadership have already sold out the rank and file, the ones that are aligned with the Democratic Party. But he said he vetoed this bill because the fund the state uses to pay unemployment benefits will be nearly $20 billion in debt by the end of the year. Quote, now is not the time to increase costs or incur this sizable debt. It's never time to increase debt for workers But they can increase debt for tax breaks for rich people. They can increase debt for wars. They can increase debt for that. But when it comes to helping the worker, we can't increase debt for that. Debt that we're going to pay anyway. It's not like they're paying it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not their money, it's our money. So, but anyhow, let's see if there's a little more to add here, and then we'll close this. The fund the state uses to pay unemployment benefits is already more than $18 billion in debt. That's because the funds ran out of money and had to borrow from the federal government during the pandemic. So let's pause here. I don't know what kind of funny shenanigans is going on with all this shit, but California puts more in the pot from taxes. We put more than $1. We put something in the range of $2 and something. I can't remember the actual figure into the pot with our taxes. When states like Texas and some of the southern states who don't have state taxes, they put less than $1 in, but take out more. But when we have to go reach in to pay unemployment insurance because of a pandemic, you have to borrow from the federal government. One, why is it called borrowing? Why is it borrowing? Why isn't the federal government just paying for it? Let's continue. When Newsom ordered most businesses to close and caused a massive spike in unemployment. So he caused it. The funds, this fool caused it, according to this their own article. But now, so you caused so you're the genesis of to why we can't, you're vetoing this bill, why striking workers can't get it. The fund was also bested by massive amounts of fraud that cost the state billions of dollars. Oh, there you go. Fraud, guys and gals and people. Let's go back to Twitter. And got a couple of more receipts to show before we move on from here. A couple more receipts here. Let's see here. We are talking Gavin veto. Because where is that? I saw that one. I think I have another. Do I? I do not. But I know I can find it. I think it's the People's Council. They have a great thread on this. Let's go Gavin veto. They have a great, it's not a thread, but they have a great tweet on this. Let me zoom out. It would be great if I could find it rapidly here. Because, I can tell you about it. I don't have to find it before I tell you about it. Because the point that they make, People's Council, let me if I type that in. Oops. But no, I'll just go to their page. Let's do that. People's Council. So let me tell you about it while I'm looking it up. So because he talks about how they rated, or this account right here talks about how Gavin Newsom rated, is this right here? How they rated, here we go. Okay, happy I found it. Let me pull up the graphic here. Gavin Newsom announces $267 million investment to fight organized retail crime. Where did that money come from? Where did that money come from, Gabby? Huh? Gabby, baby, where did that money come from? Why can't that be you seeing it that you're the ones who initiated this problem by shutting down businesses that triggered a drastic increase in unemployment? Gavin Newsom announced $267 million investment to fight retail crime. Newsom says the state doesn't have enough money for this, but he just gave $267 million. I'll correct that they round up to cops around the state for smash and grab task force. Anyway, I think I will end it there with that graphic there. But just goes to show you who Gavin Newsom is here to shield for or to protect. I'm gonna just move right into the next topic. Let me see if I can go back. Which is another quick topic, which is this. I mean, it's good and we could do better. Let's just say it that way. Let's say it that way. So here is the graphic. We'll move right into it. So we can start here, Aaron. Most California fast food workers to get $20 minimum wage starting next spring, next April. So April 2024. So we're talking, wow, that's coming up. That's what, 6 months? Yeah, roughly 6 months, 7 months from now, this new law that Gavin Newsom signed will kick in. So he's doing this one thing, which is mildly good, because don't get me wrong, $20 ain't much in California. Okay, so you need to be making to afford a place to stay on your own and not move in with somebody. I'm not saying a room, maybe you get a roommate or something like that, but even a roommate, 2-bedroom, yeah, you're gonna need to be making in about $32, $34 at least. So to speak to that, he is doing, mildly good things for labor, but then he's over here vetoing bills that would greatly help labor. You see what they do? But let's read a little bit, and I do have a little section that a snippet I took from the article. And it says, I'll actually blow this up for those that are watching on their phone. If you want to read along, it's big enough. The writing is big enough. The new minimum wage will apply to workers in fast food chains that have at least 60 locations. Actually, let me make sure everything's looking good. Okay. 60 locations. Let me go to my chat to make sure I'm always good. Let me read that again. The new minimum wage will apply to workers in fast food chains that have at least 60 locations nationwide, which, I mean, to me, that number should be, why have even a cap at all? Why have a cap at all? I don't think you should have any cap. It should apply to everybody, fast food, with an exception for chains that make and sell their own bread, like Panera. Now, somebody, I don't know if I have that receipt, but let me finish the article and then I'll get to that. Actually, no. Let's because I'm not gonna come back to that. Do I have that here? I don't. Someone, oh no, it was in the chat. It wasn't a tweet. It was in the chat because I had talked about this briefly, that I was gonna do this story another time. And somebody said that Panera Bread doesn't make their own bread. They're shipped the dough and everything, and they just put it in the oven, in a heating little microwave oven to make it fluff up. And they're calling that make and sell their own bread. That's what they're calling make. They don't need it. They don't put the ingredient. They don't do any of that. That's making. You get what I'm saying? So, like, for example, biscuits. You don't, if you buy biscuits from the supermarket, you don't say or you might use that if you're being lazy with language, but you're baking baked biscuits because you didn't make them. They came pre-made. Now, my mom makes, growing up, she would make from scratch with the baking soda, all the ingredients. I don't even know what's in it, so I don't even want to say start naming stuff because I don't know what's in it. But let's continue with the rest of this snippet here. The new $20 minimum wage is just a starting point. The council created because it's a sort of council, is created by this law also. So a panel of people, if that's makes it clearer, created by the law will also have the power to increase that wage each year through 2029. So what is that? So it starts next year. That's 6 years. I'm sorry, 5. 2024. Oh yeah, 5 years. Sorry, 5 years. It'll be in effect where they can, by up to 3.5% or change in consumer price index average for urban wage earners and clerical workers, whichever is lower. So they can go, it's two ways they can go. They can go by the consumer price index, or they can go by this percentage, whichever is lower. That's funny. Usually when they're charging stuff, they're saying whichever is higher, but when they're giving you something good, is whichever's lower. That's funny how they do that, huh? There is a couple of more details I can give you about this article, but this is clearly was a crumb that he knew he could offer to workers, that in people, in the news, and be like, oh, he's the almighty labor president, and he can always look back on this, right? But he'll also have that veto story that I just covered not too long ago. But let's look at it a little bit more. Here's the article. I guess I can close that. Of course, he has to get a photo op on it. Here we go. Gavin Newsom signed legislation Thursday to increase the minimum wage to $20 an hour for roughly 500,000 fast food workers in California starting next April. ABA 122.8, I think that's an 8 because it's kind of big. It's weird how they have that, which is based on a deal made between fast food companies and labor groups, will also establish a first in the nation fast food council, including employer and worker representatives that have the power to boost wages on an annual basis and recommend statewide changes to workplace rules. Recommend, not changes. Okay. They have the power to boost the wage, but they only can recommend changes in workplace rules, such as those on health and safety. And then I don't need to even say any quote from him. I'll just give the facts here. As Newsom signed the law, some workers and labor leaders in attendance chanted "Si se puede," which is "yes, we can" in Spanish, when the wage hike goes into effect on April 1st. Most fast food workers in the state will have one of the highest guaranteed pay salaries in the industry. The state's minimum wage for all other workers, $15.50 per hour, is already among the highest in the United States. Being the highest, also living in the highest or one of the highest states, doesn't it kind of cancel it out? Doesn't it kind of do that? Doesn't it have that effect? But we'll close that story there. And another quick story to get to is, this is something good. Have you heard what Steve Smith has been doing lately? He recently went on a podcast, and there's a lot of stuff that came out on the podcast, but the thing that we're going to cover today, and maybe what Nick and CJ will cover more of the podcast, of his appearance on there, because he talked about a lot of stuff. But this caught my attention because he used to be a part of this organization that he is now critiquing. And Aaron, you can start it here. So Steve Smith, I think that's how you say his name, goes on a podcast and calls out an organization he helped co-found, the Lincoln Project. So let me let you hear the sound, and then we'll discuss.
In this moment, we see a vast Trump industrial complex. Lincoln Project, as it exists today, is part of it. It's a grift. When I founded it, did it, 85 cents of every dollar went into the program. Today, 93 cents on the dollar goes into the pockets of 3 people.
Wow. That is a huge swing. He's claiming that 85 cents of every dollar that came in went into the project, meaning all of the ads and the buys and all that stuff. And he says now 93% goes into the pockets. I guess I haven't been really seeing any really well done ads like they usually do. just some basic stuff that any decent great editor like ours can put together real quickly. So this is pretty interesting so far. Let's let it play out. I'll back it up just for context if it was in the middle of a sentence.
Today, 93 cents on the dollar goes into the pockets of three people.
With
the lawyer Rick Wilson and Reed Galen, right? In the name of democracy, right? So it's all
you guys are not friends anymore.
I walked away from it as it blew up because of all of the integrity issues. I was the strategist. And this moment,
integrity issues. Yeah, I think one of them had a scandal. I forget his which one had the scandal. Anyway, one of them had a scandal, so I think that's what he's referring to. He's soft talking about it. That is crazy. Let's I want to see if I missed anything. I'm gonna play it one more time through, and then I'll show you some of the reaction online.
In this moment, we see a vast Trump industrial complex.
So let's talk about that part though, because I did miss that part in the first go round. Because we talk on this station, we talk a lot about the Bernie Sanders industrial complex, people who are invested in keeping this progressive Democrat narrative going because there is money coming from that you can make. And you're seeing it. I mean, you see Jake on tour now. It was another segment, so you're not seeing it in this segment, but Jake is on tour now, a book tour right now. So, but I guess they have and I never thought of that, but they have a Donald Trump industrial complex, and they do. People that are invested in fighting against Trump. That is a good point that he makes here. And the Lincoln Project kind of was one of the bigger names of that Donald Trump industrial complex.
In this moment, we see a vast Trump industrial complex. Lincoln Project, as it exists today, is part of it. It's a grift. When I founded it, did it, 85 cents of every dollar went into the program. Today, 93 cents on the dollar goes into the pockets of three people.
With
the lawyer.
Wow. I mean, that's just a flip. But I want to read this comment. Says they had to get rid of one of the founders of the Lincoln Project for some issues related to, and I can put that up. Yeah, everybody, I think, know what SA means without saying it. I don't want to. Maybe I can say it. Yeah, sexual assault. No, I can say that. I think that's what the SA stands for. I think. I do recall it being something around sexual. I just didn't know what extent. That's why I didn't even want to label it. But that I do recall something about that too. So let's finish out.
Rick Wilson and Reed Galen, right? In the name of democracy, right? So it's all
you guys are not friends anymore.
I walked away from it as it blew up because of all of the integrity issues. I was the strategist. In this moment.
And you saw the guy at the end. He's the host of the show. Let me see when it pans to him. Oh, my bad. Hold on. Anyway, the host of the show, they actually have an argument later on. Not an argument, but a disagreement. Let me pause this so it doesn't play again. Is it going to pause? They have a disagreement. Here goes Steve Smith, because he kind of had a blowback on this. Not blowback, but people are asking him about it. So, but they're not asking him about the other part. They're asking him some of the other items that he talked about. I can kind of read this. It says, yesterday, I appeared as a guest on the PBD podcast. There were some uncomfortable moments because I confronted conspiracies, lies, and delusions directly, unequivocally, and bluntly. Here are some of those moments, and then he kind of goes through them. You got to click on that to go through. Just like it's his Substack that it goes to, and then it has video clips where he's specifically talking about things. But I do want to go to Rick Wilson and Steve. I'm going to see if I can Smith. I want to see if Rick Wilson has replied. There goes Rick's account. I'll come back to that in a second here. Oh, this is old. I was like, wait, this just happened? That's old. Okay, so let's go to the Rick Wilson's account and see what he has tweeted. What has Lincoln Project? Because he's saying since they have collapsed, I thought they were still around. Am I missing something? Are they not still around? I don't see much on his page retweets. Let's go to the Lincoln Project page. So let me just continue going down. Yeah, I mean, they used to have ads all the time. Oh wow. Oh wow, what kind of disgusting propaganda they got right there. I don't know if I can stomach that. They love some Nikki Haley. They are very war hawkish. So that's the Lincoln Project. They're very war hawkish, as we already know, or some of the people that helped found it or is running it are. So, but let's go ahead and close that one. Now let's get to the main event, which is the Ukraine stuff. Now this is where it's a lot of stuff, and some of you may have seen, but I'm sure I've probably found a couple of things that a lot of you have not seen yet. Let me get set up 1 second here. Get all of our ducks in order. So Lincoln Project. Now let's go to. I think I labeled it. I started out as Matt Gaetz, and then when I start doing more research, I come to find out this is just a progressive versus. Wait, where did I put this for? Oh, yeah. I guess that's the right place. Now I do want to start with Matt Gaetz. Not this crazy stuff right here. I need to do Ukraine funding. Most of this is going to be from Twitter. But I do want to start with this tweet here this is from Bernie Sanders, which is just amazing. Now, we're going to analyze the tweet on the Nick and CJ show from a different, a normal way that we would analyze this. I'm just taking it from the perspective of Ukraine funding. So let me put up the main item here. The fight over Ukraine funding, because this is so unusual, and I don't want to say much before I bring up the other media. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and do a couple of announcements here. We're at 142 likes. Much appreciated. I do appreciate that for everybody that's here who have taken the time to hit that like button. We have 100 more people, or we have 230 people watching right now. So if you hit that like button, let's see if we can get to 225. 225 is the target. Thank you for that. 225. Let me put that on here. I got the videos pulling up. I'm just stalling as those are pulling up. I pulled up 4 tabs at one time, so they're taking a little bit to open. There we go. All right, so 142, and the goal is 225. That's less than 100. So appreciate it if you can hit that like button, get us to that target. And let's go to some comments here and see what we got going on in the comments. Let's do a chat check. I want to try to start doing that all the time. Now this tweet I had saved. We are all too propagandized. Nobody on the left is anti-war, but the left public is so caught up in labels that they can't give the Freedom Caucus credit on stopping Biden and the Uni-party from robbing us. And I'm going to bring that back up when we get to the segment. There's a reason I started that because I like that comment. So, but let's just take a look at some of your other comments. What say everybody in the comments? Bernie is always annoying with his non-auditing self. We don't need another Bernie. We don't need to know that the way home. All we want is life beyond duopoly dome. Did he really write that? It's the second part, which is kind of awkward because this gets way more amplification by Twitter than the actual first tweet. This is part of a thread. This is, I think, the second tweet in the line. Maybe it's third. It could be. We'll get to that. You'll see in 1 second. All right. I think that's enough comments for right now. Let's get into the segment here because I do have all the videos up. And let's go here. Wow, I didn't realize I had this many. Definitely that one. And we're going to start with this one. So I have a video that shows this just dramatic to me contrast between this, to me, sort of, if you said, 10 years ago, would this position would Bernie Sanders be on this side of a future war? I would not say that. I would not say that. And I would not say that about the conservatives who are anti-Ukraine war or against the Ukraine war. So I'll start here with this tweet to sort of lay this, this flag in the ground, the progressive stance on this. This is progressive Democrats' pro-war stance. This is the so-called left. This is Bernie. I look forward to seeing Congress provide in the very near future, not like later. He's saying in the very near future. Financial support for Ukraine, which is valiantly struggling against Russian aggression. Are you talking about the corruption, Bernie? The 400, the article we cover, or the article we cover, or the investigative article we covered, showing that they've skimmed $400 million, him and his buddies. But this is what I was saying about the tweet. Now, if you look at this tweet, look how many views. And if you look at, this is the first tweet. The first tweet doesn't even have a quarter of that. Now, let's read what the first part of the tweet says here. This is unusual on Twitter if you're not familiar with Twitter. Usually, the first tweet always have the most, especially when the first tweet says something like this. I'm delighted that the Congress was able to avoid a painful and unnecessary shutdown. I'm also pleased that the programs working families need were not cut, and that there was a great increase in funds for disaster relief, which will help Vermonters rebuild from July's terrible flooding. Now, just imagine he just said that. Now, what's wrong with that standalone? What's wrong with that tweet? Standalone. Now, why would that tweet not get the bulk of likes unless there's some sort of superficial amplification here? Superficial amplification of Ukraine, pro-Ukraine stance. Do you think Elon's Twitter engages in stuff like that? I certainly do. And then how the hell people who like Bernie, just think about it that way. People who like Bernie, how the hell why would they like this more than this one? Does that make sense? So anyway, I think I beat that dead horse on. I just don't buy this. This is an amplification. Anyway, let's get to some of the other receipts here. And I do want to start with a video, or move to the video here to go in line. This is the regular presentation. That Bernie tweet was just recently sent last night. That's why I just felt like I wanted to insert it. But this is where I had already had the presentation starting, because we're gonna see in one video. Oops, I thought
Other unprovoked attacks are inevitable. As my colleague Representative Hoyer said last week on the House floor.
Trying to stop it. Okay, so I can. It's a stark. Okay, there it goes. There's a stark contrast here. We're going to see
handing military equipment and weapons over to Ukraine.
This thing. Am I doing something wrong here? Why is this not responding to me? Okay, so here we go. Right here is where we will start, and it's going to show two different sides of the same Ukraine funding issue. But it's weird that the progressives, and in this case, literally, they don't even have I don't know if she's corporate or not, but they have Barbara Lee representing the pro-Ukraine side. And then you have Marjorie Taylor Green representing the anti-Ukraine side. So let's listen.
216. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Georgia seek recognition?
Mr. Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 42, printed in Part D of House Report number 118-216, offered by Ms. Green of Georgia.
Pursuant to House Resolution 723, the gentlewoman from Georgia, Ms. Green, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My amendment would prohibit funds from being provided to assist Ukraine. Over a year and a half ago, Russia invaded Ukraine, but now the United States has basically taken over Ukraine and is fighting a proxy war in Ukraine that we never voted for. We are funding their government. We are paying for their small businesses. We are paying their farmers. We are handing military equipment and weapons over to Ukraine and paying for their war. According to the congressional research.
Now, I do have the receipt to that, what she's saying here about like we're paying for everything. It's not just weapons. Like we are funding salaries and pensions, like so much more than just weapons here. Let me go to this other video. I'll bring it up so that we can watch that and insert this here. And some of you, I'm sure, have seen it because I think it kind of went viral on, at least it went viral on Twitter. It may have went viral on other platforms, but there's a 60-minute short little 4-minute snippet that's talking about how Ukraine funding is helping more than just weapons over in Ukraine. And here it is right here. And it's only 4 minutes, and then we'll get back to the Marjorie Taylor Green part of this, and then we'll discuss the fight over Ukraine funding. Am I missing something here? Do I gotta may have to refresh here. I guess I can do that. Let's refresh. It's odd. Refreshes, but it goes back to the other part.
Shrank Ukraine's economy by about a third. All
right. At least we know it played, but we do want to back it up. Let's go back. This is crazy. What is going on here? Okay, there he goes. Because now they were already on the second half of the story. We got to start it at the beginning here. And now I wonder, like, based on their economy, how much are they getting paid? Like, if you were to translate it into US dollars here, are they getting paid more than what firefighters would get paid here? Like, is it to that extent? Man, this video is really tripping right here. Let's see if it plays. Will it? Let's give it a second. this piece completely got the wrong reaction. So they obviously are using, this is what they do in American media, war propaganda especially. They use these heart-tugging stories in order for you to invest in an imperialist power, their imperialist empire, military. So, and that's what they're doing here, because you can tell, there's millions of heart-wrenching stories that from people due to our wars, our invasions, like Somalia, like Syria, like Afghanistan. You get what I'm saying? So let's continue with some of the other things that they do. I do want to, actually, I'm just going to let it play.
Great.
60 Minutes ought to be ashamed. Like I said, I think this was supposed to be a emotional tugging segment to get you to want to, it had a completely different backlash or reaction than they expected. I'm assuming they didn't expect to have this negative sort of backlash that they've been getting. At least no mention about the, I think it's the estimates I saw was 400,000 Ukrainians dead. You see how they view lives outside of American lives, even white American lives? They lost all the people. Look at that. Look how clean we get out of it. And even Ukraine, how do you hear that and not go, what? Like, how do you hear that? But let's get back to the other video. And then get into some of this heated debate, because I'm eventually going to bring up the Matt Gaetz interview from this morning. And then AOC also, I'll bring it up a little just for a part, but the most of AOC segment we will be doing tomorrow. So let's finish off where we were with this video. Oops.
$1 billion in total assistance to Ukraine. Every single year, the United States spends billions of dollars on foreign aid, much more than any other country. Ukraine has now taken the top spot. The $50 billion state and foreign operations bill includes an unspecified funding amount for Ukraine. Section 7046B2 would make funds available for Ukraine to support the ability of the government of Ukraine to defend their sovereignty and withstand the impacts of Russia's invasion, combat corruption, and promote transparency and democracy. This is nothing more than a blank check for Ukraine that Joe Biden's State Department will.
Why isn't this AOC, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, is it Summer Lee, Max Frost? Why isn't this what they're doing? The left claims to be anti-war. Where is the anti-war left in this case with Ukraine? Or is the professional managerial class anti-war left, better known as the NATO left? They're only anti-war with past wars. We shouldn't have done that. I'll bring this up. I should have brought it up with Bernie Sanders here, but yeah, and that Bernie Sanders tweet, valiantly struggling. I think the American people are valiantly struggling against the inflation this economy is producing. ? Yes, Matt Miller. Yes, they are. Great point. And let's get back to the video so we can get to some of this other receipts here. Why is a delay on my end here?
Will get to right. And even more dangerously, they get to waive oversight, claiming national security. All this will do is fuel another never-ending war and push the United States even closer to the brink of nuclear holocaust. After Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan wars, haven't we had enough of taxpayer-funded state and foreign operations?
She's calling out all the wars.
They tell us we have to fight them over there so we don't have to fight them over here.
Again, the question has to be asked, why is this not the squad? Why is this not the left arguing this point on the floor of the House. This is how a right populist, a fascist, masquerades as a populist. So I'm separately. So a right populist, I said it wrong. So I meant to say, I'm not saying that, but I meant to say is that, actually, a second here. I want to change this banner to this. Okay, here it goes. What happened to the anti-war left? That's the question that we've been asking on the more radical left. What is going on here? This is such a you're leaving an opening for people like Marjorie Taylor Green and Matt Gaetz to appear like they're really anti-war. And I don't understand how people like AOC don't see that, like Bernie. I don't understand how they don't see that. But let's continue.
But paying for
So
wars
weird
in
to
foreign
me. So
countries
weird to
will
me.
eventually have consequences on our country. And we will bring the war to America. And we will end up fighting them here when countries have had enough of the United States. After a year and a half of being engaged in this conflict, the American people no longer support the additional assistance to Ukraine. My amendment will help stop this brutal war and help push for peace in Ukraine, which should be our ultimate goal. Mr. Chair, I reserve.
Gentlewoman from California reserves. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition? I'm sorry. Georgia reserves. For what purpose, Ms. Lee, do you seek recognition?
I rise in strong opposition.
It's trippy. So you go from Georgia to California, which is supposed to be the most progressive state or one of the most progressive states along with New York. You go from Georgia to California, but somehow Georgia is the one, the Georgia state rep is the one who's repping the anti-war part. And the Cali lady is representing the pro-war. Listen to this. She don't just say, she says, I strongly.
Does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition? I'm sorry. Georgia reserves. For what purpose, Ms. Lee, do you seek recognition?
I rise in strong opposition to this amendment.
The gentlewoman is
Strong
recognized.
opposition.
Mr. Chairman, Russia's brutal and unprovoked attack on Ukraine is not just a threat.
So Barbara Lee, Barbara Lee is deciding to use state propaganda, CIA talking points. Why are you saying unprovoked war? Why are you doing that? This is the progressive, right? All right. Let's listen. Yeah, this is heartbreaking. This is. I don't understand what has happened to the left. Just don't. Oh, let me hit it down here. Maybe
Threat to Ukraine and its neighbors, but to the world. If Russia succeeds in its aggression, other unprovoked attacks are inevitable. As my colleague, Representative Hoyer, said last week on the House floor, we are locked in a struggle between freedom and fascism, democracy.
That's literally, is that written by the CIA, Barbara? Who wrote your speech? Because you're that speech is clearly wrote by a Hollywood writer, maybe a Hollywood writer. That's complete fiction. Do I need to bring up the Rand Paul video where he's saying, what are you talking about? A democracy. They canceled their elections. How do you cancel election and still call yourself a democracy? And let me just add this point. I do believe, and I said this in the video, I think it was yesterday, I do believe the United States is the one who ordered them to do that, to cancel that, because they don't want to have to deal with a an election where the people who are feeling the brunt, 400, my brother, my this, and all these people have died. Of course, I want to vote for a candidate who's saying I want to end this war. It complicates things. So I think since the United States is the one running things, and don't let them tell you the Vladimir Zelensky, he's given instructions. The top, it comes from Washington D.C. But yeah, these are State Department talking points that she's saying here. And this is from Barbara Lee. You just can't trust these progressives, boy.
If Russia succeeds in its aggression, other unprovoked attacks are inevitable. As my colleague Representative Hoyer said last week on the House floor, we are locked in a struggle between freedom and fascism, democracy and despotism, might and right. The war in Ukraine is that struggle manifest. Ukraine's democracy is being undermined every single day. Entire cities have been demolished. Women and girls are being sexually abused by Russian soldiers. Hospitals and schools, which should be safe havens, are being intentionally attacked.
Did she say women and girls are being sexually? Do you know how many times they have said that at every war? Wow. And Barbara Lee, did she write this? This is just terrible.
Thousands of innocent children and their families have been brutally murdered. Millions of Ukrainians have been forced to flee their country. Colleagues, we must continue to ensure that Ukraine has the funding and support it needs to defend itself, and that vulnerable people continue to receive life-saving assistance. And I urge my colleagues to oppose this amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
So that's Barbara Lee. Y'all like that one? That's Barbara Lee. Let's go to this guy right here. That's Barbara Lee sounding like a neocon. And now, Barbara Lee, I guess she's considered progressive, and I only give her that consideration because that's what I was told. If I wasn't told that people see her as a progressive, I would not have guessed that by what she says. I would have just thought, because up until this point, I saw her face all the time. I don't know every person's name, but when I did find out her name, that's when I was on Twitter a lot more, about 3 or 4 years ago. If you never told me she was a progressive, I would have never thought that by her own, just going off of the things she says like this. But the establishment is in a panic mode about this Ukraine funding, because the handful, I think it's more than a handful. I think it got up to, anyway, it's more than a handful of people. It's not the majority, but it's more than a handful that don't want this funding. And I think the last time they voted on it, it was something like 100 and some odd Republicans who have voted against adding funding in Ukraine. This is in the House. So let's listen to this guy. This is John Kirby, liar in chief, or one of the liar in chiefs, John Kirby. And so I did want to show you sort of the panic in the establishment if this money, and this is what they were fearing about Republicans taking over the House.
You've got your job cut out for you, John, whether you are going to get paid after a shutdown or not. I would say you're essential, but I mean, look at what's going to happen in a couple of days. President Vladimir Zelensky met personally with the senators just last week, and with a lot of the congressmen, although Kevin McCarthy wouldn't let him address all the congressmen as he had asked to. So what signal is that sending to Vladimir Putin?
I think it sends a potential signal to Putin that all he has to do is bide his time, keep grinding out this counteroffensive, try to hold on to that occupied territory he has in Ukraine, and maybe Ukraine won't have the support that it needs to continue to succeed on the battlefield. Maybe America will walk away from this. Now, I think that's a flawed signal. Obviously, it's not a good signal, but I think it's flawed because I think we've seen terrific support in both houses of Congress and by both parties, quite frankly, for continuing to support Ukraine.
Both parties. Uni-party. And it's a great clip of Matt Gaetz talking about this. And I think it was on This Week with George. What is that guy's name? Stephanopoulos or something like that? It's Papadopoulos. He went on, I think, yeah, it wasn't George Stephanopoulos, whatever his name is. It wasn't that guy, the old Clinton administration guy. It wasn't him. It was a fill-in, and it just was do I have that somewhere? It was a good exchange. Do I have that somewhere? Let me see. Top picks for me. Yeah, I think that. Oh, I'll let this play out, but I'll look for that other video to play next. So let this play out.
And the leadership in the House, though there is a vocal minority in the House led by guys
always
like Matt
bipartisanship
Gaetz,
when it comes to
the leadership in the
war.
House also feels the same way. So we're going to keep working with members of Congress. We believe there's got to be a way forward here to continue to support Ukraine.
But at the same time, right now, it's critical on the ground because the counteroffensive did not go as well as they expected or hoped for. So they're grinding it out, and every little bit helps. We're just getting the attackums to them. They still have to arrive. They have to be trained. They're expected to be very, very potent. But, how does this match what's happening on the ground? Watching America like this.
Your point's a good one. Every little bit does help. And we don't want to see this support to Ukraine dry up or affected in any significant way. And I think it's important for people to remember. And again, we believe we've got terrific support on Capitol Hill right now, but important for people to remember that that the United States is the largest contributor to Ukraine's battlefield success. And if we just walk away from this, and their success could absolutely be affected.
Okay.
You talked about the counteroffensive.
That's not our problem.
It is continuing as you and I speak. Yes, they are not going as far or fast as they want to go, but they are making some steady progress, particularly down in the South, Andrea. And we want to make sure that they've got all the means available to continue that steady progress. So a lapse in funding for Ukraine or any significant cut would absolutely have a negative effect on their ability to succeed.
And in past spending fights, Congress passed bills protecting service members, but that hasn't happened yet this time. So our troops would be working without pay. What does that do to morale?
Oh, it's a horrible blow to morale. I mean, these troops.
We can pause it here because we know that they've already passed there's no shutdown, basically. So we can pause after. I did want to just show you that John Kirby part to show that there is this is before. There's more panic now that this hasn't gone through. This is right before when they thought there was going to be a shutdown. But she tried to press him, but didn't really press him. She's not that type to really press somebody. She just asked the question again. She tried to press him to get him to answer like what would happen, but he doesn't really answer that. He just talks about how it's a great need. But now let's go to this appearance here with Matt Gaetz on This Week with George Stephanopoulos. There we go. Stephanopoulos. There we go. So let's listen.
There has to be an adult in the room.
So are you going to do it? Are you going to move to oust him? Kevin McCarthy's going to get his wish. I don't think the adult in the room would allow America to sit atop a $33 trillion debt facing $2.2 trillion annual deficits. I don't think the adult in the room would allow $8 trillion of this debt to come into refinancing at a higher level without serious spending cuts. And I don't think the adult in the room would lie to House conservatives. And that is exactly what Kevin McCarthy did. In January, to get the speakership, Kevin had to agree to certain guardrails on spending, and he had to agree to a process that would allow us to put some downward pressure on spending. Since the mid-90s, this country has been governed by revolving continuing resolution and omnibus spending bill. And what that means is that America's lawmakers take one up or down vote on the funding of the entire government. That is crazy. That is the reason we're $33 trillion in debt. We want to move to single subject spending bills. So he made that commitment. He broke it. And if at this time next week, Kevin McCarthy is still Speaker of the House, it will be because the Democrats bailed him out.
going to pause it and I'm going to rewind it because this part that he says here, I did want to discuss. I thought I was rewinding, but I hit the wrong button.
Downward pressure on spending. Since the mid-90s, this country has been governed by revolving continuing resolution and omnibus spending bill. And what that means is that America's lawmakers take one up or down vote on the funding of the entire government.
That part. What do you guys think of that? This is Interactive Sundays. I can call it that. What do you think of that? Like an up or down vote. Let's, there's thousands of things in a budget. Let's just say 100. Let's just narrow it down to just 100 and make it an easy number. 100 things, and you gotta go. You mean to tell me out of 100 things in the budget, there's not a disagreement? You just gotta go, well, if I want thing number 98, I gotta vote for the entire thing, even though it includes thing number 2. Why aren't they voting on these things individually? It's because they know it's certain things that the ruling class actually wants, the top things they want would not likely pass if they were standalone. And yeah, that's the point that I'm making here. Like because I'm being intellectually honest, I have to give credit to this guy, Matt Gaetz, because there isn't a left who isn't making and I'm talking about the Ukraine stuff when he gets to that point, who isn't making a point about Ukraine, because they're gonna go into the Ukraine stuff in a second here. But let's listen. Now let me say this. His demeanor, his style, I am a fan of his style, how he doesn't care. He has an opinion. It's an opinion that I disagree with, but he has his opinion and he's like, this is it. And he argues it to his point and he doesn't back down. I'm the only one that believes this, whatever, I'm still doing it. I have a similar personality, so I can relate to that style. And I think I would never run for office, but if I ever just magically became, this isn't a hypothetical, whoever I would absolutely have strategies like this, but from a left perspective, which is what we want the squad to do. We want them to be this sort of relentless in their beliefs and willing to go to bat in this way I'll throw a wrench in this whole damn thing. I don't get, to get this. So I agree with that sort of strategy.
That is crazy. That is the reason we're $33 trillion in debt. We want to move to single subject spending bills. So he made that commitment. He broke it. And if at this time next week, Kevin McCarthy is still Speaker of the House, it will be because the Democrats bailed him out and he can be their speaker, not mine.
So when do you make this move?
So what he's saying is, he has to have 218 votes. And if they don't vote for him, literally just the people who extracted those items from him, if they don't vote for him, there has to be Democrats that vote for him. There's no way, there's no getting around that. Democrats have to vote for him in order for him to become Speaker of the House again. And will they do that? I don't know, but there is video of AOC saying she would vote to oust him. I don't know if she would vote to necessarily keep him, but we're going to get to that video with AOC in a moment. I'm getting it set up in the background. But let's finish a little more of this and what he says. There's a very interesting interaction here.
You'll be seeing it this week.
This week, okay.
That's why I came on the show this week.
Now, look, it takes only one person.
He didn't get the joke.
To call for a vote to remove him, so-called motion to vacate. But you would need a majority to remove him, which means you're going to need Democrats to remove him. Do you really think that Democrats are going to vote to remove Kevin McCarthy because he made a deal with Democrats?
No, I actually think Democrats are.
I'm just telling you, AOC already said she would do it, and I'll bring that video up. I would insert it here, but let's finish out this, and then I'll bring that up because she literally says, yeah, I would definitely vote him out. So Yes, whoever this fill-in guy is.
You're going to bail out Kevin McCarthy. So this is an exercise to show the American people who really governs you and how that governing occurs. So I'm on a mission to change it, where we're evaluating these bills independently. Kevin McCarthy is off making a secret deal on Ukraine as he's baiting Republicans to vote for a continuing resolution that doesn't include Ukraine. So the one thing Democrats, Republicans, the White House that we all have in common is that Kevin McCarthy at one point or another has lied to all of us. But if they want to keep him, then he belongs to them.
So what he's saying, when he's saying they lied to all of us, because he's saying that the Joe Biden administration too, because he promised the Joe Biden administration that Ukraine funding would be in this CR. So if people don't really grasp how these CR, these continuing resolutions, they're literally just saying, so it's like a photocopy. Hey, I'm taking this sheet, it's a photocopy of something, and all we're doing is just keep photocopying it for the next year, photocopy it again for the next year, photocopy it again for next year, without re-examining what the budget is, without individualizing the items in the budget and voting on them separately. So I agree with that. I don't know. I'm not even in a. I agree with voting on things individually, because I would show as hell I'm not voting for any Ukraine funding, but I would vote for something else that, Head Start. But if you have Head Start money, now I got to vote for you. Like, nah. So I'm actually agreeing with this guy, Matt Gaetz, because we have a left that's so weak.
But so you're not accomplishing anything here. I mean,
that's not true.
Well, you don't have the votes to remove.
You see how the professional managerial clause always makes a win as the only thing that can be accomplished. What do you mean? He has to renegotiate in order to become, because the same thing happens. That he took 15 times to become the speaker. So all what's going to happen is Matt Gaetz knows he has a lock on a certain amount of people that prevents him from being the speaker if Republicans were the only ones voting for him. So you're either going to renegotiate what's happening and to bring these four or five Republicans back on board to reinstate you as speaker, or we're going to get a new leader. So this is what, now look at the version of this. If this was the squad, imagine this was AOC sitting here. Listen, Nancy Pelosi, and I'm going to play AOC right now. Nancy Pelosi made, and when it took her 15 times to become the speaker, she made certain promises to us. She said she was bringing up a vote for defund the police. She said she was bringing up a vote for Medicare for all. She said she was going to do these other things. She said she was going to do it, and she hasn't done none of it. So we're going to bring a motion to vacate the speaker. Why isn't this happening this way? These people are so weak. Let's continue here.
Move him.
Well, by the way, I don't know until we have him. And by the way, I might not have him the first time, but I might have him before the 15th ballot. That's the number of ballots Kevin McCarthy needs.
So are you going to do this every day like you had suggested? Or are you going to go
I don't understand. Why is that funny? Why is this establishment representative making it seem like that's so childish and silly? No, that's democracy. He has a belief, and that's why I said I could be in the ocean by myself with my opinion by myself. I have zero problem standing alone against a sea of people. I have zero issue. Like if I feel like I'm right and I have the points, like he's had points from his perspective. I'm not saying they're my points, but there's points from his perspective. I will stand alone by myself. No issue. So I get this tactic, and I think this hardline stance is the tactic that the squad should be using.
Voting over and over and over again?
I am relentless, and I will continue.
Yes. Imagine every time she didn't bring up forced to vote, Medicare for all to the floor, if this was the squad that did this, yeah, we're going to put a motion to vacate every damn day, Nancy Pelosi. Because guess what? They have to take up the motion to vacate above all other business first, and then they can get to the, So yes, I will be doing this every day until you do. Why don't we have people like that?
Continue to pursue this objective. And if all the American people see is that it is a uni-party that governs them, and that it is always the Biden, McCarthy.
Who is Matt Gaetz? He's saying Uni-party? What is this? Is this am I on the Twilight? I'm looking at the comments here. Are anybody else tripping that this is coming from Matt Gaetz? Does he always talk? I don't listen. Like the last time I cover him when he torched Jank, I covered that. Oh no, I covered when he was talking, he was questioning a military guy in Africa. He was talking about how they train the people that do coups. So yeah, I guess he does have some things, man, because this should be the squad doing this stuff here. But using this tactic, I should say. Let's continue.
McCarthy, Jeffries government that makes dispositive decisions on spending, then I am seeding the fields of future primary contests to get better Republicans in Washington who will actually tackle these deficits and debts.
I mean, if you somehow succeed after multiple tries, I mean, who would be the speaker?
Well, we have a lot of talented people in our conference. Obviously, it's an awkward discussion while our number 2, Steve Scalise, is in treatment for blood cancer. So I'm not going to pass somebody over because they're getting a medical treatment. I want to see how Steve Scalise comes out of that.
All right, I want you to listen to what Hakeem Jeffries said after the.
Who cares?
Let's hear from him.
It was a victory for the American people.
This guy is he's so terrible at speaking. He is awful. Like he has to be taking classes to get better or something. He is terrible at speaking. He has these long pauses. He doesn't know where to put emotion. He seems very robotic.
And a complete and total surrender.
You know what he seems like? He seems like an android who's trying to appear, who is amongst humans, who's trying to appear more human by giving emotion, but it doesn't seem authentic. It doesn't seem authentic. Yes, he's a zombie boy. Great description, John.
By right-wing extremists who throughout the year have tried to
hijack. Never seen anybody this bad.
I guess you agree with part of that. You agree it was a total surrender?
No, it wasn't a surrender by the MAGA wing. We lost. A defeat is not a surrender. There were 90 Republicans who voted against this bad
defeat
deal,
is not a surrender.
We
That's
did
true.
not prevail because here's what I've observed in the 118th Congress. On matters of frivolity or messaging bills, Kevin McCarthy is fine partnering with House conservatives. But whenever it comes to the money, right, the debt limit, the budget process, Kevin McCarthy's true coalition partner is Hakeem Jeffries. But
why isn't the squad saying their version of this? Oh, Nancy Pelosi, she likes to pretend like she's with workers and likes to, but she likes to do that. But when it comes to announce a legislation, no. By the way, one person being able to have a motion to vacate the speaker was ended by Nancy Pelosi. They brought it back.
You faced some criticism from fellow conservatives on this, who say that you are the one that basically kneecapped McCarthy because he tried to do a bill that included changes in border policy. He tried to do a bill that would have cut some spending. This is what Eric Erickson said after the bill passed. Conservatives
don't need to hear that. I'm going to go to AOC now. Let's go to AOC. Now, I'm only going to AOC so she can talk about what's happening to Kevin McCarthy, because what's happening to Kevin McCarthy is there's a lot of broken promises, but the deal he tried to make or did make with Democrats, I think he said with the Senate, the Democrats, because they run the Senate, for Ukraine funding. was a secret deal. But let's go to AOC, and she goes on here to spin the shutdown. But I'm not playing the whole thing. I'm only playing the part where she talks about Kevin McCarthy voting him out as a receipt to the previous segment when he was like, "Are you thinking to get some Democrats to vote out Kevin McCarthy?" And yes, they will.
Started Saturday expecting the federal government to shut down, but by the end of the day, it was still open, and they had made no concessions to the Republican majority to keep it that way. Joining us now, New York Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So, first of all, you just heard Congressman Matt Gaetz say he's going to move to oust McCarthy as Speaker this week. If a motion to vacate the chair comes to the floor, how would you vote?
Well, my vote beginning this term for Speaker of the House was for Hakeem Jeffries, and I do not intend on voting for a Republican Speaker of the House, but I believe that it's up to the Republican conference to determine their own leadership and deal with their own problems. But it's not up to Democrats to save Republicans from themselves.
This is a totally off-topic question. I should have asked it before we got started. Is AOC pregnant? Somebody in this video, because this video is from my account, I posted this video, and maybe I'll go to the comment later. They said they were talking about how she's obviously pregnant. Somebody was saying, I'm looking at her in his interview, she's obviously pregnant, and they were mentioning something else about them buying a house or something. Anyway, so I just throwing that out there. If anybody knows, I'll throw your comments up if you know anything or heard anything about that.
Especially.
So do you think that there will be any Democrats that might vote to save McCarthy?
I mean, I certainly don't think that we would expect to see that unless there's a real conversation between the Republican and Democratic caucuses and Republican and Democratic leadership about what that would mean. But I don't think we give up votes for free.
And but would you vote to vacate? Would you vote to get rid of McCarthy as Speaker?
Would I cast that vote? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think Kevin.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So actually, I think if they don't get enough votes to vacate, then he remains. If they get enough votes to vacate, then it goes back to the negotiating part. So I kind of didn't misspoke, but I didn't say it the right way. So just to correct the way I said it, because I just had a flashback on how I said that. Let's continue. She goes on to say why she would vote against Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy is a very weak speaker. He clearly has lost control of his caucus. He has brought.
Isn't that rich that the person who refused to force a vote is calling a speaker who had forced a vote pushed on him, calling him weak? You mean the thing that you could have made Nancy Pelosi weak? But I guess you see making her weak is a bad thing. But making a person who's corrupt weak, I would say, is a good thing. Let's see if she says any more, and then we'll move on to another receipt.
The United States and millions of Americans to the brink, waiting until the final hour to keep the government open, and even then only issuing a 45-day extension. So we're going to be right back in this place in November. And, I think that our main priority has to be the American people and what's going to keep our governance in a cohesive and strong place. But unless Kevin McCarthy asks for a vote, again, I don't think we give something away for free.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard your fellow squad.
So she's saying not for free. She's like, I ain't giving my vote away for free, sir. Like, what could they get? Maybe he's going to go into this question. I can't remember. I watched so many interviews. Maybe it was this one. He talks about power sharing, where you would negotiate. Well, we'll vote to keep you Speaker, but there has to be some sort of power sharing agreement. Wow. That would be, and then he would technically be the Speaker for the Democrats. That would be technically because the Democrats vote for him. So I guess that would be technically true that Matt Gaetz said.
Ilhan Omar said Democrats should only support McCarthy in exchange for a 50-50 power sharing agreement.
Oh, so it was this interview.
I mean, I think when it comes to power sharing, we will discuss that as a caucus and what we would finally accept or not. But again, it comes at a price. You don't just vote for a Republican speaker for nothing. That's not what we're elected here to do. We're elected here to make sure that we raise the minimum wage to a living wage, to make sure.
Now we're going into the talking points, which I don't have time for. Technically, or even if I had the time, I don't have the time for it. If you get what I mean, if I even had the time. But let's go to a couple of other receipts here about this, and it is back on to, where am I here? And while you're there, I'll pull it up while you're there, or not here, I should say. Not that one. All right, so let me share my other screen, and not this one, for this next receipt on this topic. And I think it is it this one? Yeah.
In your opening, we're really talking about two separate things. And let's be perfectly clear. Ukraine funding has nothing to do with the government shutdown. Nothing. It's a separate issue that we are debating. But, you know,
that's an outright lie. So what MSNBC does a lot is they bring on the rhinos, what hard right hard right GOP. I said ROP. Hard right GOP would call a rhino. That's who they bring on just so they can be like, Republicans agree too. So let's listen to this guy speak about it, and it says because it is the Ukraine conversation is wrapped up in the conversation with the shutdown.
if Kevin McCarthy wanted to pass a CR that would keep the government open without Ukraine funding, I guess, you know, he could do it if he was the Speaker of the House. Oh, wait, he is the Speaker of the House. So if he wanted to put that bill on the floor,
Which
could
he
put
did,
that bill on the
and
floor.
that's what passed.
Look, the Republican plan here is to shut down the government and then try to lie their way to blaming everybody else for it. The House has not.
So this is a Democrat, he's not a Republican. This is a Democrat, sounds just like a Republican, because again, I gotta keep thinking it's the opposite when we're talking about support. The Democrats are trying to make it seem like this is not about Ukraine, and it's absolutely about Ukraine. That's why the Senate, controlled by the Democrats, has Ukraine funding in it, and the House, controlled by the Republicans, doesn't have Ukraine funding in it. But he's telling you this is not about Ukraine. Now, it is about other things, but Ukraine is definitely front in line as far as why we're here, why the shutdown took so long. One of the reasons.
CR. Meanwhile, the Senate is trying to pass a bipartisan CR, and McCarthy and his allies are recruiting Republican senators to try to undermine that effort and drag it out past the deadline. They are doing everything they can to shut down the government. So that's one.
No,
Two,
that's
on
what you
Ukraine,
guys did.
Described it perfectly. The Republican Party doesn't exist anymore. There is the cult of Trump. And the cult of Trump heard from their leader that we are not supposed to support Ukraine. So they're not supporting Ukraine. Now why?
So it's just simply because a cult leader told us, or told them, the Republicans, because I'm against this war too, but told the faction against the Republic that's against the war that are part of the Conservative Party. He just told them that they don't have any basis in their reasoning behind it. They don't give you the reasoning, which, I mean, you're part of Congress. You see Marjorie Taylor Green has been on the floor. I just played that. So they pretend like they don't have reasons behind it, which is just disingenuous. Let's watch some more.
Trump is doing that. We could speculate, but the Republican Party is caving to what Trump wants, and they are going
That's
to
just
help
ridiculous.
Putin slaughter Ukrainians as a
What?
result. And let me one final point on this. There are a lot of Republicans, I think of Mike McCall and Don Bacon and Michael Turner, who say they support Ukraine.
This
So
is
why
a
don't they?
Democrat. This is a Democrat. I'm going to rewind that. Just over the top propaganda. This is a Democrat Democrats are the
Let me
war
one
hawks.
final point on this. There are a lot of Republicans, I think of Mike McCall and Don Bacon and Michael Turner, who say they support Ukraine. So why don't they force a vote on a Ukraine supplemental? I mean, Matt Gaetz can just,
So I didn't go back further enough. So let me go back a little more. It was here.
Putin slaughter Ukrainians.
There we go. I didn't go back 2 more seconds. This line,
Putin slaughter.
This line though is quite astonishing for him to
The
say.
Republican Party is caving to what Trump wants, and they are going to help Putin slaughter Ukrainians as a result. And let me one final point on this.
Now, he's saying not funding them will help Putin slaughter Ukraine. Haven't we been funding them, and isn't Putin slaughtering Ukraine? Isn't it to the tune of 400,000 dead Ukrainians? That's the unofficial numbers that the State Departments don't have that number, but that's the actual number. I think that's one of the numbers I've heard, the highest number I've heard. But this is so weird, and it goes to the title, the fight over Ukraine. Like, this is just bizarro world. Usually it's the Democrats that's going no to war, at least having the rhetoric, even if their vote doesn't match.
There are a lot of Republicans, I think of Mike McCall and Don Bacon and Michael Turner, who say they support Ukraine. So why don't they force a vote on a Ukraine supplemental? I mean, Matt Gaetz can just, pull the puppet strings and make the House do whatever he wants. He's one person. All these people who claim they support Ukraine aren't doing it. We have the votes. We have over 300 votes to support Ukraine. So, yeah, those are the two issues, and I think you identified them perfectly.
Congressman, I want to ask you about this. Russia is a major adversary in the United States. It's an expansionist country. There's no good reason Russia has to be an adversary, but Russia has chosen a path that has caused it to be an adversary. Let's roughly say we're spending $40 billion a year on this.
So if you didn't know, what is his name? Velshi? And this is something that if you told me before the Ukraine war, which anchors would be the most hawkish, I would not have picked Ali Velshi. But he is, I'm trying to think if there's one more outwardly. No, I think he's probably most outwardly hawkish, where he doesn't even try to hide his opinion. And he seems to be overzealous about the fight, more so than the Congress people. So let's listen to Ali Velshi here.
But Russia has chosen a path that has caused it to be an adversary. Let's roughly say we're spending $40 billion a year on this. Europe is spending $40 billion a year on this. Every one of those missiles that works to intercept a Russian hypersonic missile is an American-made missile. There are foundries in America working 3 shifts to try and keep everybody supplied with the stuff that they need, and not a single American soldier needs to be on the ground. Someone else is putting their lives on the line to hold off America's chief adversary right now. Where are Republicans on this?
And it's so funny how the people who say that, they have no moral compass about saying that. Oh, Lindsey Graham said it in another video. They have nothing to say about that. Like, we're not losing any lives. Can you finish the sentence? Other people are losing lives, and that's the deal? You're trying to act like this is a good deal? It's only a good deal if you think American lives are more valuable than anybody else's lives. If this is that American exceptionalism coming in right here. Let's see here. It's pretty terrible. I'm going to play it and read some of your comments and see what you guys are talking about.
Here's the national security concern. Russia is looking to take over another country, and by the way, may look to take over another country.
See what I mean? Like, he's the most excited anchor about this.
We don't need a piece of this.
Well, you get 2 groups.
We don't need a
You've
piece
got the
of this.
pro-Putin caucus that Liz Cheney memorably described as the Putin wing of the Republican Party. And then you've got the cowards.
This is a Democrat. Oh, okay. He's a ranking member on the armed service. Oh, okay. He's from WA. That's Washington State, not Washington, D.C. Really? Wow. did not know that this. I mean, I don't know if I know this guy as much. I've heard of him a couple times, but this guy is terrible.
That Liz Cheney memorably described as the Putin wing of the Republican Party.
Wing.
And then you've got the cowards.
Because they have
the ones
difference
who
of
agree with everything you
opinion.
just said, but are unwilling to stand up to Trump or Marjorie Taylor Green or any of these people to defend the principles and the interests of the country.
This sounds
and the
like
world.
a Republican.
Now,
That's why I
pro-Putin wing
assumed
is really
earlier. He sounds like a
interesting, because people like Trump, they sort of see Putin as he presents himself as sort of a.
I should have said it differently. This sounds like the more traditional Republican that I'm used to hearing about war. They sound just like this. And a traditional liberal, back when liberals used to mean progressives, now it doesn't mean the same thing. But back when they used to use the word liberal, but it used to mean progressive, what we use progressive to gay, Matt Gaetz sounds like that in parts where he's talking about Ukraine only, not all the other crazy stuff he talks about. But that's I don't know. It's just me that is this type of stuff is shocking.
A white nationalist autocrat. They're sympathetic to that, which is really frightening. But then you've got all the other people who know this is wrong, but don't have the courage to stand up to the Trump cult in their own party. Yep. That's why we are where we are.
The Democrats are the war party. Remember when what's that? It was, I'll bring it up in the back. Remember when Marianne Williamson went on the Jimmy Dore show and he had the question about this, and let me pause this. I should have brought it down. And he had the question about this, saying like, what's going
Other unprovoked attacks are inevitable. As my colleague Representative Hoyer said last week on the House floor, we are locked in a struggle between freedom and fascism, democracy and despotism, might and
close
might.
this. I don't
The
know
war in
why this
Ukraine is that struggle manifest.
Anyway, all right, so let's close that one. Let's close that. I got one or two more receipts here. So I wanted to go over now. Okay, here it goes. Here's another Democrat. Now, there's another Democrat, and then we're gonna go to the Jamal Bowman. We're covering the main story of him pulling the alarm tomorrow on this Nick and CJ show. So make sure you check that out. I click this. Let's go to the MSNBC clip. Okay, here we go. This is Senator Bennett, and he explains why he's so concerned about lack of Ukraine funding. Let's listen. Oh, shoot. I thought I'd add this to the screen. My bad, everybody. Ha ha! I thought I'd add this to the screen already. My bad, everybody.
What the bill does not
That's why I was playing it. I just looked in the chat and I was like, hey, what is going on? So let me rewind it so you can see it. But I prefaced it the right way. I don't need to restate what I said. And here we go.
BC News now reporting that one senator is holding up the bill concerned about aid to Ukraine. The House passed the 45-day stopgap funding measure with bipartisan support earlier today. The bill includes money for disaster relief, keeps the government open until November 17th. What the bill does not include is aid to Ukraine. The House vote was a U-turn from House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who ditched demands from hardline Republicans and relied on votes from Democrats to get a continuing resolution over the line. But the bill does not include further aid to Ukraine, and that is a problem for Democratic Senator Michael Bennett. NBC News says he is reportedly holding up the Senate vote on the CR, citing concern over the lack of funding for Ukraine. Now, this
is so crazy that the Democratic Party is the pro-war party, and Marianne Williamson had the audacity to sort of be offended when Jimmy Dore suggested that in the interview they did. She made it seem like that was way out of bounds. What is she watching?
This is what he told MSNBC before the House vote.
I don't have. You know what? Somebody should ask Marianne Williamson what are her thoughts on Ukraine funding not being included. Somebody should ask her this question about what's happening with the Ukraine funding.
Have any idea whether the money for Ukraine, for example, is in the bill? It sounds to me like
Democrat
it's not in the bill.
from Colorado.
I guess one thing I would worry a lot about is if we
Is
come
this a
back here in
progressive?
45 days and there is no way to get these right-wing, extremists in his party to support the continued funding for Ukraine, which is the whole world is watching this. Vladimir Putin's watching this.
Who? They care so much about what Vladimir Putin has to say. I like these late night Sunday streams. Maybe I'll start doing this. I do like, because right now it's approaching 9:30 and I'm gonna be getting off here soon. 9:30 on the East Coast. But yeah, it's approaching that time. But is Michael Bennett, is he considered a conservative? I'm trying to think because I don't think Colorado's didn't they end qualified immunity in Colorado? Aren't they kind of progressive a little bit, or no, or just a little bit better than the corporate Democrats? I don't know. But if he's okay, he said no, hell no, he's not. He's always been a corporate. Okay, so I don't know who this guy is. So no, let me put those comments up. He's always been a corporate Democrat. Yeah, and Putin is not watching these mediocre neoliberals. That is true. He's not watching you guys, so don't flatter yourselves about this. Now, he might get a report about it. But
all of our allies in Europe and Asia are watching this. Xi Jinping is watching this. And these guys can't even do the basic work of governing. This is a guy who took 15 votes or something like that to promise his life to the most extreme parts of his party. And now he's gone through that kind of nonsense again. And here we are.
Once the Senate takes up the bill, it will have to be signed by the president again. The clock is ticking. You can see that on the side of your.
So he's concerned. So this was what was happening in between when the House had already passed it and when the Senate hadn't taken it up. So we didn't know what the Senate was going to do at this point when he's making this, and he's mad. Like, what the heck is going on? Why aren't we holding this up for more money for Ukraine? So there is another one. I forgot to play this right here. Funny for Ukraine. Now, this is a video that kind of just goes over, takes a little while to show up. There it goes. I'll pop it up right now.
Lawmakers are already working on ways to keep supporting Ukraine by way of a separate bill.
Separate bill now they're talking about to get Democrats they're going to get you some money. They're going to get Ukraine and all their corruption, some of our money over there. They want to make sure they get it. I'm going to rewind it.
Lawmakers are already working on ways to keep supporting Ukraine by way of a separate bill. ABC's White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks is on the North Lawn with more. Good morning to you, Mary Alice. There is a real political fight here over Ukraine.
Absolutely. Gio, the White House had been telling us for weeks that they were sure they were going to get more funding for Ukraine before this deadline. So the fact that that got stripped out of this final deal was a big blow. Top defense officials from the White House had been lobbying Congress hard these last few weeks to make sure that there would not be any lapse like this. And we do not know yet what effect, if any, this might have on the battlefield. The Pentagon now has to wait to hopefully get new authorization. Remember, it was just 9 days ago that President Zelensky was here in Washington getting support in the Oval Office and on Capitol Hill trying to make his case. Now, the White House last night did get those very public commitments from both Democratic and Republican leaders in the Senate that they would still get this done, but that's the Senate. The question now becomes if and when McCarthy will bring a vote to the House floor. Even if he knows it will pass, we're back to that question of how much he listens to those hardliners in his conference who say they are not interested in more aid to Ukraine. The president last night said that he expects McCarthy will keep his commitments to Ukraine, but he also blasted House Republicans for letting it get so close to the wire. Janae saying we should have never been in this position.
And a tough position that Kevin McCarthy finds himself in. Mary Alice, thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC.
Man, bizarre world. Anyway, I didn't really have much commentary on. I mean, I did have commentary, but it felt like it was going to be somewhat repetitive. But there is one point. I'm looking for the little scroll button. There is one point. I think it's right about here that they make that I wanted to talk about. I think it's here.
To hopefully get new authorization. Remember, it was just 9 days ago that President Zelensky was here in Washington getting support in the Oval Office and on Capitol Hill trying.
And so that to me says that they had a heads up that, I mean, they did know, because I remember when before the Republicans took the House, this was one of their talking points. They didn't use it as much, but it was one of their talking points that they used, that if the Republicans take the House, then Ukraine funding is up in question. So they knew that. So ahead of this sort of shutdown, they planned this guy and had him come out to try to, put pressure on them, on those in the House to give him more money, but it didn't work. And I'll let it play a little more. I guess I can give a little more comment.
Trying to make his case.
Trying to give something different than I said before.
Now, the White House last night did get those very public commitments from both Democratic and Republican leaders in the Senate that they would still get this done, but that's the Senate. The question now becomes if and when McCarthy will bring a vote to the House floor. Even if he knows it will pass, we're back to that question of how much he listens to those hardliners in his conference who say they are not interested in more aid to Ukraine. The president last night said that he expects McCarthy will keep his commitments to Ukraine, but he also blasted House Republicans for letting.
So that's the part where they said how he broke promises to Joe Biden, because he promised Joe Biden to keep that money in the bill, or have that money for Ukraine in the bill. So I believe that was one of my final videos, I believe, if not the last. I think it's the last one. Yeah, played that in the intro. Yep, that was the last video. So let's go to Twitter to kind of round off this stream for tonight. I'm starting to do a little check. It is a lot of stories I'm gonna have to just let go, because not gonna be able to get to them today. I could toss up this short George Takei. It's not even a story. I just want to show you his tweet. Is it Takei? Is that how you say his name? Calling out RFK. I don't know if you've seen this. I'm just gonna show you this. Not really a segment. I guess you can call anything a segment if I'm talking about it. So I guess you can call it a segment, but what I want to do, here we go, this one. Let's go to here. I just want to show you this tweet that he's getting called out for. This is all of our friends, the one that we love. And let's blow this up. George Takei. I think that's how you say it. Takei. George Takei. There's no Tay on it. So let's go, George. Tries to, is this vote shaming? Vote shame RFK Jr. supporters. I guess you can call it that. And that's what we're going to call this mini segment. This is a mini segment, because it's not any article or video to cover this. But this is George Takei tries to vote shame RFK Jr. supporters. And here is that tweet here. He says, because this is after RFK has announced, or it will be announcing on the 9th, that he is going to be running as an independent. And this is his reaction. This is some of the liberals' reaction to that. This is a way I can make this slightly bigger. No, not with cutting him off, but and it takes away the effect if you don't see his happy ass face right there with this comment. But it's finally clear as day. RFK Jr. has announced he will run as an independent for president. He's backed by GOP funders, and his goal is to peel away Democratic voters from Biden. He goes on to say this: don't be fooled by shiny third-party traps. To stop Trump, we need to unite behind Biden. A vote for anyone else is a vote for Trump. I think we need to start doing this. It's just saying, okay, then I'm voting for Trump then. By way of Dr. Cornel West, by way of Claudia Dela Cruz, by way of RFK Jr. Just go with their phrasing. Stop arguing the point. They clearly know that's not what it is. So to just annoy them, just go with it. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, put me down for Trump. Put me down for Trump. And I'm going to read this again. Don't be fooled by shiny third-party traps. Traps. That is a very unusual word to call it a trap when you're voluntarily voting for them. To stop Trump, and this is the part that everybody assumes everybody's plan is this, to stop Trump. That's not my plan. My plan is to stop the Uni-party, not specifically just Trump. I'm not on a I'm here to stop Trump and not Joe Biden, sort of train. So I'm here to stop both. Or and let me see if it goes on. There are some people who reacted, and I'm gonna get some takes on this. Not there. Actually, I think that was it. Let's go here and check out. I like how they do this new way of going through the quote tweets. Now let's bring this down so you can see it better. All right, let's go. Let me see if I find anybody I know. Find anybody I know. That's somebody who's a Republican that likes him. What? The Communist Party. Are you watching somebody? All right, I'm reading these like I'm not even streaming right now. I'm reading this like giving you my natural reaction. But let's move on to another item here. I don't have any other receipts on George, but more vote shaming. I mean, this is not gonna work this year. I just feel like vote shaming is just not a thing that's gonna work. Especially not on people like me or people that would vote for RFK. Like, it feels like those non-establishment lefties, if you call yourself that, or non-established libertarians, or non-establishment conservatives, I guess, because he can appeal to all three of those. These people are not going to vote shame you. Like, if you are non-establishment, it's hard for you to get vote shame. What vote shaming works on those who pretend to be non-establishment, so they can hang with the cool kids, right? I did that one. I still haven't been able to get. I did the fast food one, right? Oh wow, I got through most of them. Didn't know that. Bowman the House Negro, that's tomorrow. I think the crystal ball one, I've been trying to do that. I might have to let that go. Just might be too long now. But the Nazis in Canada, that's another one I will try to cover tomorrow. But yeah, I've covered all of the items for today. So we're going to be winding down. Let's just do a quick run through of my feed to see if there's any last minute sort of breaking stories that's going on here. Let me see. Sorry, I'm waiting for another page to open before I move that, because apparently my internet, and I think it's not the internet, it's my computer has a capacity, and then when I'm on here for a while, it starts to slow down. So 1,100 people have come through to watch. So thank you, those 1,100 people. We're at 267 likes. Please hit that like button to get us a few more likes, but now let me scroll down. Wow, China's foreign minister says the United States government is the greatest propagators of disinformation in history. Wow. So maybe that's the story I'll cover. Here goes Sabby. Canada is our neighbor. Don't be surprised if our government tries to do this. And she's referring to this here. And I think we're going to cover this sometime this week. The Canadian government, armed with one of the most repressive online censorship schemes, announced that all online streaming services that offer podcasts must formally register with the government to permit regulatory control. Wow, that is crazy. Let's see if there's any other items. It says, is it possible? Here goes, and I think I need to add this to my Bernie tab for tomorrow. They're down here. The Nick and CJ show stuff is down here. Be covering establishment Sandy, be covering Feinstein. I got a good thread and some stuff on that. Max the Sellout, that's Max Frost. Bernie the Warmonger, we're going to cover Condoleezza Rice. I hope I get to that. But this is for Bernie Sanders, the Warmonger. And this is Rome. Is it possible to open a class action lawsuit against Bernie Sanders for selling people out and funding his family's nonprofit? Asking for a friend. I'm gonna retweet that. Wow, that's just more of his. This is So this is the RNC Research Center saying Biden said, when I left the Senate, I was able to convince Strom Thurmond to vote for the Voting Rights Act. And then it says Thurmond died in 2003, while Biden didn't leave the Senate until 2009. The Voting Rights Act passed in 1965 before Biden was in office. So that's, yeah, come on, man. We'll skip over that, but that was Max. Polling found, and I'll skip over that. That's some more Ukraine stuff. This is Elon commenting on that same story. Yeah. All right. I don't see any videos here necessarily, so I'm going to go ahead and call it quits here. Thank you for watching today. I guess I can play this. No, that's too short. I don't want to play that. I was going to play that video, but that was too short. All these videos are short. Let me see what this one's about. Is it a UAW worker? Oh, yeah. It's a UAW worker. This to take us out. So strong labor support. This is from the World Socialist website. They posted this video. So let's play this. Let me see if I have any super chats. If I don't anymore, I think I read ones I already had. Yeah, no new one. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I'm going to play this video. This is about a minute long. This looks like a guy on the picket line. So maybe this is an auto worker. And I will play it now. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow for the Nick and CJ show. I'm going to drop myself out of the screen, but you'll still be able to hear me. Let's play this video. Thank you for watching again.
The biggest issue is, of course, we need more money. Tired of living from check to check. It's not fair. From a carton of eggs to, whatever you may need. Everything is just overly expensive. And we deserve more. And it's time we stand up. It's either now or never. Not just for us, but for people that's coming in behind us for the future. Working for a multi-billion-dollar company like Ford Motor Company. The money is there. It's unacceptable.
What are your thoughts on, expanding the strike and having an all-out fight against the big three when they're making massive profits?
We got to do what we got to do. Like I said, it's either now or never. So that's what we got to do. I'm all in. Solidarity. You got to hit them where it hurt, and you got to hit them in their pockets. I feel like we all should be on strike at the same time. Solidarity, for sure. That's just how I feel. I think the way that he's going about it, it's just not really affecting him the way we want it to in the time we need it. We need to as soon as possible.